sci-fi fantasy because like this podcast is now legal, right? And I'm just going to be upfront about this. It's basically going to be a ranting episode because we wanted to talk about all sorts of things that people dislike enough that they eventually stop reading. But it's gonna rant, and we know it. But before that, how productive have we been? Because I, for one, have been very productive, actually.
Look at her being all smug and shit. She's all like, yeah. She looks like a bed bug in the office. Like, oh, she's like it as a joke.
Well, have you two done anything?
Yes. I got a couple thousand more words into Reservations at 8. We've been working pretty hard on Andromeda's Love, world building, that kind of stuff. And I've also, and this has been my main focus for the last week or so, I got the preview copy of The Clockwork Dynasty from Daniel H. Wilson, who will be coming on the podcast in July. So I've been trying to push myself through that. I mean, it's really good so far, but I've been wanting to get it finished so I can get it sent to y'all so y'all can read it before he comes on. Because I don't think he'd appreciate me like cutting it apart and scanning it and emailing it to people. I would like for this to happen again. So
let's not piss off the best-selling author
or get sued or whatever. So that's been most of my free time has been reading. It's a really easy read so far, but it's been really enjoyable. But that's been most of my time, especially the last 7 days. I've just been reading and other things.
All right, Colin.
I've done probably about 2,000 words in my dwarf story.
Oh, wow. We're all making progress.
I know. I haven't had time the past couple days, but I'll get back to it.
Yeah, you should, right? Promise? That's why we publicly shame ourselves.
Yeah, I won't lie. Like, this weekend, I'm like, man, I really should read. I really should write. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm just going to play Dota all weekend. So I played like 12 games of Dota this weekend.
I mean, for some reason, the tiredness is not affecting me as much lately. Like, I don't know why. And if I could, like, bottle this phenomena and then make it a supplement and chug it all the time, I would. But my life has gotten kind of weird. Like, I really need to be finding a job that will pay me to live. And one day I went to an interview. It was a bait and switch, though, and not like an accounting job like they said it was. It was door-to-door sales. And I was so angry, I came home and continued world building my urban fantasy. I don't know why. It was therapeutic. And I've just been doing it every day. And that's going rather well. Like, the plotting and everything is getting easier. Like, I know the things that need to happen in the story now. I just need to, like, do more of the details and figure out how magic works without copying Dresden Files. Fuck you, Colin. Need to throw that out there. But
we just need to, like, that needs to be the hashtag on every, like, tweet. Fuck you, Colin. Hashtag fuck you.
You're so mean to me.
I mean, to be fair, it's
trying to help
Dresden.
you create an original story.
By saying the doom of Damocles is hanging over me, that was not helpful.
But what if it is?
I had to make the reference.
But another, like, as I also take it as a sign of success of this podcast, is one of our listeners contacted me and offered to beta read my military sci-fi. And as he's been doing that, it's like, I have to write this now because it, like, is the best motivation I've ever gotten. And so I've also done several hundred words on that, and it's confusing. I don't know which one to work on anymore.
Well, if anyone wants to beta read Andromeda's Love, let me know. We'll send you stuff.
And it's Golden Girls in space, right?
It's essentially the Golden Girls meets Firefly with some, with some, like, journey storytelling involved.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I got a beta reader out of this. So maybe you will too. It's great. Thank you, Tyler. It's been wonderful. So let's get on to things that we're just going to rant about. What are the things that, ourselves included, people dislike enough that might make them just rant about a story or stop reading entirely?
Words for the sake of words. Like, it's something like J.K. Rowling did. That is why I quit reading. Like, we get it. We get what you're trying to say. Shut up and move on. And it just pissed me off so bad that I had to quit reading. And, I don't mind wordy authors. It's just how you use the words because, like, I don't mind Ayn Rand that much. But, but she wrote a 1,000-page book, And so she's a very wordy author, but the words have more purpose than J.K. Rowling's. So I was just like, oh. Even in just descriptions, like Rowling's like describes brown in like 5 different ways. Like, we get it. It's fucking brown. Shut up and move on.
At least her descriptions make sense, unlike that high fantasy thing that we tore apart of like describing a girl's hair as the color of a leopard's tongue. Her elbows are like highways.
But see, the thing is, like, if you use something really obscure like that, you can kind of get away with it because even to the writer, it's so indescribable. Maybe that's why you use like really weird analogies to like, I'm doing the best I can here, guys.
And he also used the word pubes.
Her pubes were a field of wheat.
Oh my god. Her hair was brown, but her pubes are blonde? I'm confused. Didn't think it usually goes that way.
Erickson has the habit of like each book tends to have a word that gets overused. Like that was his word for the book. And like in the second book, Dead House Gates takes place on the desert continent. Everything he starts describing symbols as like ochre colored. And then everything red is ochre. Like he doesn't describe a red anything anymore. It's just that's the word for red in this book. And it's like
ochre was more of like a golden brown color.
Well, dusty brown, yeah.
So it's not even red.
Oh no, it's reddish brown.
But yeah,
like everything is described as that instead of a different word for a color.
Yeah, that's not good. Elliot Modisett had that problem. I don't remember what the book was called, but he loved the word nylon, meaning black. And you could see like about 10 times per page, he'd use this word. And in a completely separate book and series, that was the main character's name, was Nylon. And his hair is white, which is weird, but it's just like the dude had a fetish of that particular word.
Yeah, if you get too repetitive, that's probably my biggest thing is like just getting too repetitive. Like, we got it. You're just adding this for length because you were at 90,000 words and your publisher told you 100,000. So you're just shoving shit in here. Stop it and call it a night or something.
I mean, usually I thought the thing is that you turn it in and publisher or editor says cut out 20,000 words. So that's an easy way of doing it, right?
Well, some of us don't have the issue of overwriting. We struggle to get to that word limit.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of thought that's the way it usually goes with the publishers and editors. They want you to like make it a tighter story and better pacing by just forcing you to cut out a certain amount of it. Which what I think most people do is they cut out entire scenes that they realize are redundant. But what George R. R. Martin does instead is going through every single sentence and pulling out a word that he thinks is redundant. And he doesn't cut out any scenes. And that was why I stopped reading him, because he had too many scenes that did nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't...
There's a lot of elements to those stories that just don't relate to the story. Like, we did not need half the scenes.
I mean, Brienne is a really cool character, but once she gets away from Jaime and she's just traveling, which is another problem I have with...
Everybody's traveling.
Travel is boring. Okay, you got to make it exciting. Make there like enough something else that's happening, but she's just traveling and she's talking to people. She's asking the same 3 questions to every single person that she meets. And just traveling. It's just like that was like it was in chapter 4 of Brienne in the 4th book or something. Like I can't do it anymore. I quit.
I actually
tell me everything that happened.
I enjoyed her trip with Nimble Dick on her second read through, but it really doesn't serve much of a point. Just get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, Dany's storyline doesn't look like it's going to have anything exciting. Like it slowed down to a crawl and then leaves on a cliffhanger that's just like, oh dear God, please let her die.
I mean, she was doing a lot of things. Like, she was going to conquer and everything. She's going to go to Westeros. And then she says, no, I'm going to stay here and rule here, which is a direct, like, deviation from the storyline that's been built up for her so far.
And that stalled the story in a major way.
And then it's just about her having sex with what's-his-face.
Oh, Dario.
Yeah.
I mean, who
And
wouldn't want to
cinema.
have sex with what's-his-face, right?
I mean, sex is another topic that people got onto that's like, I can't read this because it's too graphic of sex. And, I mean, George R. R. Martin's sex scenes can get a little weird sometimes, but I thought his sex scenes were fine. I was just tired of reading about Dany having sex with the same dude and doing nothing else.
Well, you got to be, thorough, right? I mean,
It just,
She should probably be pregnant by this point.
yeah, it's interesting that she hasn't been. She keeps saying things like her dragons are the only children she will have. It's
Oh,
like,
wait.
how can you fucking prove that?
I forgot about that whole part.
Well, she says that, but I don't know.
To be barren.
But she's fucking 15.
Well, the whole magic witch thing is supposed to have left her barren.
I don't remember that being, like, decisively said. I kind of took it as Dany being dramatic.
Well, the witch told her she'd never conceive again until the sun sets in the east or whatever.
I thought that was just about Drogo. Like, Drogo will never be normal until the sun sets in the west, east.
But she'll never carry a baby either. I don't know.
I don't know. I thought it was just Dany being dramatic, and maybe Martin should have emphasized the witch's effects a little bit more.
Also, that kind of, undermines her entire claim to a throne if she's no longer capable of producing heirs.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not the right person to take over and lead this country if you're going to die and leave nobody there.
Mm-hmm. Although she does have, like, a brother that she doesn't know about. That no one knows about. Spoiler alert.
That no one knew about until book 5.
Yeah.
That's another thing. That's another thing George R. R. Martin does. By book 4, I should throw Malazan in that list too, but by book 3, but book 4, especially by book 5, you really need to have set the stage at this point. Don't start dropping brand new things into it all the time.
Like new characters you make out of nowhere.
Yeah. And Malazan, book 5, was a whole new continent away from everything you knew before, with one character you've heard of before.
Heard of, but not met?
Well, sorry, you met.
Okay.
Book 5 is him telling his story to the character in book 4 that he's with, basically. But then everyone goes to that spot, so it's important to know what's going on. But you're really pushing the boundaries of how much to start introducing to a series.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, the whole Game of Thrones series, it got so bloated that he had to split up book 4 and 5 between a cast of characters. So you just don't see some characters in one book or the other because they're just in the wrong places or something. But then he didn't even do it by continent. And,
supposedly it was continent,
but not entirely, right? Like, Tyrion is in the wrong book for that continent, I think.
It explains so much.
He has to figure out, like, he went forward in time to the point he has to go backwards because he just ignored half the people.
Yeah.
That was badly done.
And it explains why you start getting so many other random character points of view. He just needed more characters to fill his book because he cut out the main ones from different books.
So why didn't he just write the core book in the first place?
Yeah. Like, did we really need the Oakart there and his lovely description of giant brown nipples?
Yeah, I don't think he survived long anyway, so, like, why was he there?
He had, like, 3... Oh, God, Quentin. He had, like, 4... He has 4 chapters and then he just dies.
Yeah, it's just... I guess it's very realistic to have characters who just die because people just die in a world as violent as that.
Yes,
but
we didn't need his point of view.
yeah, us as readers, we get strung along, and then we feel like the wasted investment, and we get angry.
Wouldn't it have been just as easy for Danny to see this Dornish prince show up, not like him, he goes and dies, and you're like, well, that sucked.
Yeah.
If we need 4 chapters of him traveling there.
Fucking hate
traveling.
Travel can be done interestingly. I'm sure I've read books that had a bunch of travel that was done interestingly. Like, they did important plot points on the way, but it just, if it takes up too much of the story, it's just bogging down the pacing.
That's essentially like Lord of the Rings, right? It's just all travel.
I have not read Lord of the Rings.
That's right. You're an uncultured swine. That's right.
Lord of the Rings is good.
It is good.
Wheel of Time does a lot of traveling too.
I read one book of Wheel of Time, and it was entirely travel, and I knew it was going to continue being travel, so I just
the whole series is travel.
Don't need to get the second book. But I mean, there's other reasons.
When you say travel, you mean like actually traveling, not like that, like hitting different destinations, but the in between destinations.
It's the in between that gets to me.
Right. Yeah. That can be pretty boring unless you're using that time to like educate about where you're going. Like, hey, we're gonna have a talk here about this new planet we're going to.
Mm-hmm. And
we're feeling backstory,
useful,
you know.
Then it's good. But a lot of it is just, and then I did this thing, and then I went and found food there, and then I kept walking and walking and walking. It's the entire reason I stopped reading. What was that Robin Hobb book? Book 3?
Oh, God, Assassin's Quest.
Yes, that one.
Yes. For a series that I liked so much going into that last book, that was a slog and a half that I have never dealt with before.
Book 2 was amazing.
Book 2 is fantastic.
But book 3, it's so slow. Like, okay, he's recovering after book 2. That's very necessary. And he had some point of like, all right.
It's very old.
But if you read the description of book 3, they directly spoil book 2. So I'm trying to avoid that. But, I mean, okay, he's recovering. And then he says, I'm going to leave in the morning and go do my quest. And then 6 weeks later, he realizes that he's been fucking around doing nothing. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to go walking. And then I'm going to go walking. And I'm going to meet this person. And I meet that person. Go walking. And I'm going to play with my puppy.
Did you finish the book?
No.
There was one scene when he's on his way to find Verity where they're on like a mountain road and the road is covered in a landslide. And it's like 30 pages of the effort it took them to get across the spot, because if they just try to walk through it, they'll cause the whole thing to fall down and pull them with them. Mm-hmm. But it's 30 pages or so, that's on the Kindle, so I don't know how long, of them just getting 20 feet down the road. And another 100 pages before they get to the end of the road.
Yeah.
And then they finally get to the end of the road, and they don't know what to do. And they just sit there for like another chapter or two, trying to figure out what to do. And then, like, the last chapter of the book, they figure out what to do it, go, and done. It's like, it was so long.
Rick and Morty said it best when they're going down like 600 oversized steps. And Rick is saying things like, oh, yeah, this is a wonderful story adventure. And Morty's just like, no, if this was a story, this part wouldn't be included.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
You need to read the rest of the series.
Another thing that I got kind of annoyed with in this Robin Hobb series was he keeps getting dogs, and then they keep dying.
Oh, poor puppies. You can't kill the puppies.
It's just like, okay, I get it. He had a really, like, the first one died. That was terrible. And then he gets a second one. It's like, oh, come on. You're not going to just kill it. But she did. And it died. And then he gets a third one. And the third one at least sticks around for a book. Or 2. Or 10. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure he also dies. At some point.
There's a lot she does well, though. But that's not the topic of this.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to insult Robin Hobb too much. She does fight very well.
She is really good. Like,
Fitz and the Fool are fantastic.
Was amazing.
Characters.
Fitz is amazing, and yeah, like I've read books of hers that they're absolutely wonderful. But you know, this is the ranting episode.
That book was like one of those situations where you think Why didn't the editor just tell her to cut 50,000 words out of that thing?
Especially since it was like 30,000 words longer than
It
book
was
2.
significantly longer than book 2.
Yeah, it's just Okay, let's move on to a slightly different topic though. Let's talk about like say characters that were annoying enough that we like just have to rant about it, or maybe made us stop reading. Like a lot of people really hate Mary Sue's, and then they start arguing about who's a Mary Sue and who's not. But
Not a Mary Sue, but Animator Rake and Malzahn. Until you get to know him, like the first introduction of him is just like he is a walking edgelord, like emo darkness, like everything about him is just dark. And
I mean, just listen to his name, Anomander Rake.
the son of darkness.
That's what it means?
No, but that's his title.
Oh.
Now, like they're actually literally born of the realm of darkness, which is not like they're very emo. And oh my, like until you really actually meet him and see he's got personality and wit and whatnot, he's just a very weird introduction to a character.
Yeah. It's just like, does he like anime? Does Erickson like anime? Because it sounds like an anime guy.
It does sound like an anime guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I get irritated with anime a lot of times. Like, oh, looky, another edgelord sob story. I get tired of sob stories. And yet they're so useful. Like, it's my urban fantasy thing is like I have the character being an orphan, which everyone's a fucking
Dresden.
orphan.
I'm gonna say,
But
if she had parents, like the entire fundamental nature of the story just changes.
I know that's my problem.
It's just so much easier not to have parents.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
like I don't.
not having parents is one of the really easy go-tos for tragic story. No parents, husband, wife, lover dies,
It's a
child
huge
dies.
change. It's like it makes you like, okay. I have to go get revenge now, right? And it's an easy story, just like noir and case files are. Fucking Dresden, God damn it! But
So essentially,
I
it's
mean-
Batman Dresden, is what you're adding.
no, because she's broke. She's broker than Dresden is.
Well, yeah, but it's still Batman. Like, gotta get a
Batman is only a super person because of his obscene amounts of money.
Oh, yes, but his motivations are must avenge my dead parents.
No, actually, that's not her thing. I just like that's eventually going to be a thing. It's just not her big shtick. It's just
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much of it changes if I have her parents living or not, like brutally murdered or something. It's like
Like if she
I'm
just
annoyed.
goes home to a happy household every night, then it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not fun.
Exactly. So sob stories get really annoying when they get over the top. Like the classic thing, the girlfriend in the refrigerator. It's the trope namer of, was it Spider-Man or something? His girlfriend was murdered and shoved in a refrigerator. She only exists to give him a backstory that's terrible, and he goes after revenge.
I don't think that's
I
Spider-Man,
haven't-
but
I haven't read the actual thing. I just know of the trope because people yell about it. It's like, but I don't know how to avoid her being an orphan because it's so easy.
so here's your lesson, kitty. Just kill a loved one and you've got a nice backstory, just pre-made. What's this
Yeah.
person's motivation? Hate and revenge. There you go.
Isn't that like the core thing of the Punisher? Didn't like his wife and kid die, and
Yeah.
then Punisher, Batman, Spider-Man, and lost Uncle Ben, and
Right.
So they-
Well, his parents were
Luke-
never around, but he caused his uncle to die. And that was more the motivation. It was his fault that his uncle died in Spider-Man.
I don't know enough about Spider-Man. I just know like somebody dies, and then someone goes off and does something heroic, like Luke Skywalker. It's just
Don't forget
Yeah.
Harry Potter and his central orphanage being like the defining characteristic of him.
yeah,
You're an orphan, Harry. That's all. Like that's his entire point.
yeah, and then he's still raised in a family, but the family that treats him like shit. So it's like
You could
It's
always
never a
give
good
your
thing.
main. You could always give your main person like very terrible family.
She could also just have moved. Her
But-
parents could live in New York City, and she just doesn't keep in touch with them. They're out of the picture. You don't need to have her be an orphan.
But that kind of changes how her connection is to things.
True.
Like, if I have them knowledgeable about the situations, then she gets into a dangerous situation. Why would they have let her go?
Because she's an adult and can do what she wants.
I guess, but it kind of changes a lot of it.
You can call him on the cell phone every night. Tell him she's okay.
I mean, at the same point, I killed her parents off, but I gave her, like, surrogate parents. It's like, what am I actually doing here? I don't know. Let's rant about Kvoth, because he's a Mary Sue, right?
Who?
The most
Name of the Wind.
wonderful musician, most talented magician.
And then he's like the
handsome.
best fucker around, literally.
Does he win the gold medal in limbo and sex?
He
think
does
so.
he goes off to have sex with the goddess of sex for a little while because he's so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't as terrible as other people were saying.
But just the fact that it happened.
I guess. I mean, so he starts off as he has a happy family, and then they're brutally murdered.
Murder.
And then he kind of has to he's got to figure out what the hell killed them. And he has a lute, and he just starts playing it, and he's amazing at being a musician, and that kind of carries him forward. He goes to university, and he's like suddenly the best at everything magical, even though people hate him because he's poor, I think it was. And then, yeah,
he has the talent to make lots of money very easily. He just doesn't do it. Like all the little things he can make that get decent money, just make more of them so you have money.
Well, he does eventually. And in the beginning, it's hard because he didn't have like the know-how or the startup money in order to do it.
True.
And that was a nice like challenge. At like the end of book 2, though, it's like he has tons of money. He has a bunch of success. And he's also sleeping with every girl ever. Except for the girl that he wants to sleep with.
J.K. Rowling also threw like tons of gold at Harry Potter for some reason.
Yeah, he's just like, here you go.
He's rich.
I thought that was well done because, like, he was rich and he felt bad that Ron wasn't. And the family that he loved the most didn't have enough, and he felt guilty about it. I liked that part.
Still, but he went from
it's just a convenient plot point that
he went from nothing to everything in like 2.5 pages. You're a wizard. You get to leave your terrible family. Oh yeah, you're also
rich.
Motherfucking rich. Yeah. Woo.
And very talented at everything.
Oh,
except girls.
No, he was a fuck up at several things. He was talented at Defense Against the Dark Arts and terrible at...
True, but he's also extremely good at flying a broomstick, even though he's never used one before.
Well, that's because awesomeness is hereditary, right? Which sometimes I think is a fun thing and sometimes is annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. If Dresden was awesome because of his mother, which we kind of see is true, but maybe it wasn't fully inherited.
Also, he's starborn for some, like...
Which you still don't know what that is.
That's clearly her fault, I think. I don't know. I have an entire podcast to talk about the conspiracies of that, and we have been having a lot of fun. But...
There's, like, a lot of stories try to avoid Mary Sue's. Or, sorry, like, they try to establish that this character is not the best at everything, so that they're not just the best at everything. But then by the time the story's over, they're the best at everything.
I think one big flaw is that people try to give their characters flaws and they do them terribly. Like, you have a character and she's wonderful at everything, but you need to give her a flaw, so sometimes she's just really angry. And the way it's shown in the story is that she'll get angry at the stupidest shit and make more problems. Instead of fixing the problems or doing it badly, she's just making more problems because she's a dumbass. Like, I think it was Bad to the Bone or Magic to the Bone. I've already ranted about it on this podcast. Like, it's after some sort of big battle and she's like really hurt. Her boyfriend comes up and protects her and because like, okay, stay in this circle to be safe. And then she says, no, I'm a woman that stands on my own and I'm not going to depend on no man. And she leaves the circle and gets fucked up again.
Rand
Also
al'Thor and Will. Sorry, if you want to finish that thought.
well, the reason I actually stopped reading that book is because she was just really dumb entirely. Like, she didn't have enough money for rent, but she wasted $5, her last $5, on Starbucks coffee. And yes, this took place in Portland.
Oh
And
my god.
the reason that she didn't have enough money is because she didn't ask her daddy for more money. Or because her daddy was rich and powerful and she hated him
Is
for
this
some reason.
Ivanka?
No. It's just
What? So she's broke, even though her
Until
father's
she-
rich,
yeah.
and she spends her last money on the most expensive coffee you can buy.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was just like, I couldn't handle that character and I stopped. But my mom kept reading and then she told me about how dumb it was afterwards. Like, I'm so glad I stopped because I had to throw the book across the room if I read that. I don't depend on no men. I'm going to leave the
Oh my
safety
God.
circle.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So,
Like,
But I mean, if that's the kind of, I mean, I guess part of it is who you're writing to, because what if that's what your readers want, is that super independent woman,
an independent woman isn't the same thing as a dumb bitch who's going to get herself into worse trouble.
Depends on the, it depends on the matter perspective, right?
Mercy Thompson is an independent woman. She has her own business. She does not depend on her boyfriend for financial things, anything. They're just happily in love together. They might have married at this point. I don't know. And she doesn't depend on any of her friends, but she does protect them. And she has her own independent life. And she has like a real life with like income and stability. And she owns her own house and several cars because she's a mechanic and she's going to fix them up. That was an independent person. Whatever that character was in Magic to the Bone or something was not.
like in Wheel of Time, Rand, the main character, his like big weakness in a way is that he can't let women fight his fights and die for him. So like he's got a growing list in his mind of every woman who's ever died in his name.
What about the men?
He doesn't care. But then like it leads him to do really dumb things because he won't let other people do things because he doesn't want them to get killed. I mean, it's appropriate. It just also feels very obvious that you're using this to set up bad situations.
Sort of. I think that's a flaw that can really work. I think the same thing happened in Dresden. For example, Turncoat, when he hasn't been telling the alphas, the werewolves, what was going on in the Skinwalker, and then one of them died and the other one was really fucked up. And then they demand, like, we have to know now because we're really in the middle of this and you can't deny that anymore. And so he tells them everything, even though he feels terrible that they're going to get themselves into worse trouble if they know more.
Because they're like two good players who really shouldn't be getting involved in these things.
Well, they're getting a lot better, which is really cool.
True.
It's just like what Dresden tries to do is shield people from it, and he did that with Murphy too until he finally gave up and like he told her everything, and then their relationship got better. She became more badass.
That's sort of the ongoing thing is Harry tries to protect people. They almost get killed, so he has to tell them. And if he had just told them in the first place, they probably wouldn't have almost died.
Yeah, like if you tell someone
That
the
could be annoying.
consequences of doing something and why, then they'll be able to make an informed decision and maybe they won't be a dumbass. But if you don't tell them that something really dangerous, if they go do something and, just trust me, they're not going to believe you.
I mean, it's very much a sitcom type trope where like 95% of things in sitcoms could be avoided if people just told the truth and weren't terrible to each other. Yeah, there's so many times that could have been avoided in Dresden where he's just like, if you just told the truth, no one would have gotten hurt.
That's my favorite thing with the end of Seinfeld, how they just march every character across the screen that like they've been dicks to people for a long time. Just don't forget that. Like they're just assholes to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, so that flaw of Rand is very believable, but
It is believable.
It's inconsistent since he doesn't care about the men.
Not necessarily. I mean,
it's the women that bother him.
if he really likes women, it makes sense.
He marries 3 people.
Yeah. I've heard funny stories like that. Like maybe
I mean,
Jordan's wife didn't really like that aspect of the series.
I mean, I would feel much worse if a woman got hurt because of me than like a dude.
Well, sort of. Because a woman or any form of like innocent bystander, yeah, feel terrible. But I know that there's like a group of warrior women in Wheel of Time, and they're probably half the ones that are dying for Rand. So if they're warriors, if they're soldiers, that's their problem.
Right, but I mean, I'm just saying personally. Like, it's one thing if that's like their job, you know.
Hmm.
I like there's a scene in I want to say it's Path of Daggers where Rand sends one of his Ashaman henchmen to go get something. And oh, there's a bunch of wards on it. Here's some like here's how you get around them. And he just like forgets to mention a couple of them and the guy almost gets himself like, oh well yeah, thanks for bringing it. It's like you almost got this guy killed because you didn't bother to tell him the whole story and you're like I don't even care, but some woman very vaguely associated with you gets killed, and you're just going to remember her for the rest of your life.
But how many of the women who died for him were Aes Sedai?
Well, there's a lot of the, what are the names? Aiel, that he...
I don't remember exactly what their names were, but like the warrior women Amazons.
Yeah,
Amazons.
Aiel, I think.
Okay.
They get killed for him fairly often.
Yeah, because they're warriors.
Warriors, and that's what they do.
Yeah. So he shouldn't be upset about that one.
Like, whenever y'all bring up warriors, all I can hear is Dwight. We are warriors. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I mean, I would say soldiers, except they're much more like primitive and Amazon feeling. So whatever. I have a bunch of soldiers, and now I have to start killing them. By the way, that's gonna be fun.
Murder all the people.
Well, I haven't actually killed the character yet, so this is going to be weird. But I need to start. Yeah. Do you have any other, like... okay, more characters that we can rant about is just unbelievable bad guys. Like the ones that are like, oh, I got to destroy the world because something. And they don't have detailed motivations.
Yeah, that was like in the first Hellboy movie. That was kind of like, we're gonna bring you into the universe. Why? Because we are. I mean, that was pretty much the long and the short of it.
Yeah, I get bad. Badly done bad guys can just be a really big problem.
Well, and the other issue is the bad guy bad enough, right? Then that's something that bothers me, and this is very apparent in like all the Iron Man movies, is the bad guy never lives up to the destructive force of Tony Stark on himself, but they paint it as a him versus somebody else when it really should be painted as him versus himself. And so a lot of times the bad guy there will just fall flat. And you see it a lot in writing where, because people want the trouble, like they want the guy with flaws and all that bullshit. But then you could overpower the person to destroy themselves. That's a thing that just bothers me when the person is more apt to destroy themselves than other people are.
Yeah. There's something that I really hated about Avengers was that, okay, New York City is going to get destroyed, but for some reason I just don't care. But, like, say, Deadpool, what I loved about it is that it was his girlfriend. It wasn't... are just statistics to me. It was his girlfriend. It was very personal. That's why changes worked. It's because it was his little girl. And that's why it was important, not just the massive amount of people that you can't put a face to. And I think that's like the bad guys and the plots should get more personal.
Well, yeah. Well, generally, personal is smaller. Like so.
That's okay.
Well, but it does create different issues, right? So, like, do you want this big? It's hard to have this big galactic story and a very personal villain.
Maybe you shouldn't have the big galactic story.
Well,
I fucking
I'm
hate
just
Marvel.
no, I wasn't talking about Marvel. I'm just saying in general. You
I
know,
just like that. I have this problem with any of the large cinematic universes that they're doing. It's like, okay, there's like the Thor and the Iron Man and the Captain America, and in their individual movies, maybe their uh, plots are more personal, which I don't care about any of them really. I don't like
well,
the
like
comic books, but when you try to get them all together and like, oh yeah, it's going to be one big badass cast, and nothing's personal because you can't make it personal to all those people.
well, that's one reason I really liked Ant-Man because it was a very small cast. It was about his, girl, and it was just a very small thing.
I haven't seen that one, and I noticed the puns. It's very small.
Yeah.
Ant-Man. But
You can't admit, like, I try so hard not to make those puns, but I always end up making those puns because there's just no way around it.
yeah, I just ah.
Have you ever quit reading a story because a character did something you hated so much you're like, fuck this and throw it away?
I almost want to say I did that with Sword of Truth, but mostly it's just because it was so unbelievable at the end, or at least the end of the book that I read. And yet it was really disgusting up until some various things. Like, so the book that I read that was last was, for me, was Faith of the Fallen, which is book 5. And at the end of book 4, there was like this big democratic vote of whether Richard was going to save a country, a particular country that hadn't really been important before. But they all voted against him. And he said, okay, I'm just going to let you deal with what you asked for. And he leaves them to get utterly slaughtered and destroyed. He goes away into the mountains. And then in book 5, he's leaving all of the problems that he caused for other people to deal with. And I just like that. And then some witch gets him and binds herself to his wife. So anything that happens to her happens to his wife.
That's not fair.
Right. So like he couldn't do anything to her and kill her because obviously it hurts Kaylin. And he has to go with the witch. Her name is Nikki. And they went to like this center of anti-communist shit that he built because everything is so communist. It's terrible. Which I know communism has its problems, but it's like, my God, that was over the top. Like, they detailed things that, like, there are statues of people ripping their eyes out after they saw something that was perfection, and everyone is, like, so giving for other people that they're miserable. And at one point, Nikki was wanting to get a reaction out of Richard. So she walked up to a thug and said, I want to have sex with you. And she knew it was going to be absolutely brutal. And Richard didn't do anything to stop her. He said, you're only hurting yourself, even though he knows that the damage that is being done to Nikki by that thug is also happening to his wife. And I just, like, how can you not care? How can you not, like, do anything to stop what's happening to someone you love? Well, but he didn't. Like, that's how, like, a mark of how wonderful a person he was, is that he just let Nikki do her own thing and not caring that it was going to affect his wife.
So he was a terrible person.
Right. But everything that happens in that series is like building up of how important and wonderful and awesome Richard is, which is just one of the things that got really sickening. And the end of that book was Richard made a statue of a man and a woman standing tall and being proud. And oh, by the way, he's a master sculptor, which that never happened before that book. Fucking Mary Sue. And it said something like, your life is your own, you don't owe it to anyone, at the bottom of it. And everyone's like, oh, communism is bad, and everyone's wonderful, and now they're all giving to each other and happy, and it's just, like, amazing. He built a fucking statue.
What is this?
This is Faith of the Fallen from the Sword of Truth series.
Oh.
And all right, I'm done. I can't do that. Part of it was because Richard was just a terrible person. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
He defeated communism with a statue.
Ooh.
All right. But
preaching is something that's not good in books.
Yeah, I was actually that's something I wanted to get on is when you can tell that like the author is just beating you down with his ideology. Granted, I know that's one reason people write, and that's okay with me. But
like Ayn Rand, more anti-communist bullshit.
But like the
that's why she wrote those books.
Yes.
Don't start a fantasy series and then start browbeating you with
like there's
morality.
This bit in Ready Player One that he just keeps harping on, you know, basically why anyone who doesn't believe what he believes is stupid. I'm just like, this is terrible. So I always skip that piece.
Yeah, Terry Goodkind did that a lot, and he also just didn't seem to care about how the reactions that Richard actually caused are bad things. It's like, no, he's awesome because he's the chosen one, which is just another trope, but whatever. Yeah, there's another thing.
Not bad.
There's a thing that happened in, I think, book 2 or 3. I don't know, it's like the Blood of the Temple or whatever like that. Blood of the Fold. Or Temple of the Winds. It was one of those two. But Kaelin did something, his wife did something that was like kind of a betrayal to him, even though it wasn't, and I don't know, he was mad at her, even though he was in the wrong, and he just like secluded himself away in a magical place. And then he realized that, oh, he fucked up too, so he needed to get out, but there was like a curse on him that like there was going to be a plague if he left. So, and he was not going to only kill him, but kill everybody else too. And he leaves anyway, and he has these 3 words written down on his hand. He goes to Kaelin, he says he's sorry, and then as he's dying, she reads the words on his hand, and this like released the chimes, it said. It was like the chimes were these things that kill magic or magic people. And so it dispelled the curse that was on Richard, but it like started this after effect of destroying magic everywhere, and it was a bad thing. And Kaelin is the one who's at fault for that. She made the mistake of saying those words, even though he had it written on his fucking hand for her to do that. It's Kaelin's fault, not Richard's.
Apparently, Terry Goodkind is a strong proponent of Ayn Rand.
Oh, yeah, that was obvious.
Yeah.
He also has made statements that he doesn't write fantasy. He writes real human stories. He's got dragons in there somewhere, I think.
Just get over yourself. It's just one of those moments where you're just like, dude, come on.
And this is a little mean, but if you've seen a picture of him, it's a little funny. Like, totally trying to be an edgelord. Like, he has, like, the ponytail and, like, a beard, and his hair is a very pale orange, but he has, like, badass sunglasses and the crossed arms stature.
Well, if you look at me, it looks like I'm trying to be, you know, in Sons of Anarchy, but that's just because I have a beard and I can't grow hair anymore.
Yeah, you don't wear like the sunglasses and the stature of like for your promotional picture of trying to look like a badass edgelord. It's just like, I don't want to think about Terry Goodkind anymore, but I kind of do because I rant about it.
That's why it's the ranting episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, everyone.
So this
is fun for you too.
Not necessarily a. What am I thinking? It's not necessarily a book thing, but if there's a bad reader for an audiobook, which I listen to quite a bit, I'm out. Like 10 minutes in, I'm done. Like no matter how good the story is supposed to be, if that reader's bad, I'm out.
Yeah. I've
also,
done the same.
If you have different readers in a series, try to keep the pronunciation on things the same. Because I noticed that with, I think it was the Knight of Knives, which is Ian Esimon's, one of his Malazan books. And the reader for that's not the one doing the main Malazan series, and he starts pronouncing a couple words differently.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of technically on the publisher and the director of that as fault, but it's still something that they should be aware of. Like,
also,
actually,
the Malazan is not how Erickson says to pronounce it, but the readers all read Malazan. Like, it's just easier.
How does he say pronounce it?
Malazan.
Oh, he's British, isn't he?
Canadian.
Oh, okay. I thought he was British.
Close enough.
But it's like...
Well, it depends on which part of Canada. But
I think I actually read that the readers for those didn't get any pronunciation tips from Erickson.
Mm.
It's like that's just gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely had that issue. Because the first however many through the next to last Dresden book I did on audio. I was reading through one. I'm like, the fuck is this word? It's like Lenanchi or something. Like, it took me probably like a good 30 seconds to figure out what that word was.
What's interesting about the Dresden audiobooks is that at one point in the same book, a character changes accent. In Proven Guilty, Harry gets a letter from Rashid. And when he's reading the letter in the beginning of the book, Rashid has an Indian accent. At the end of the book, when Rashid comes in person, he has like this slightly British Arabic accent that he has normally. It's like, so why the change?
Well, maybe it was intentional. Maybe Dresden read it that way, but he didn't actually have it. Sort of a subtle.
Maybe Dresden just thinks he's got an Indian accent.
I mean, he knows Rashid. He met him before this point. It's like very strange, but okay.
Have we talked about magic systems yet?
Not really. All right, let's go to magic systems and inconsistencies.
I was gonna say with like Harry Potter. It seems like every time people have duels, you don't really see a lot of the spells you think people would start throwing around. Like Expelliarmus does not get used. Like, why all the Death Eaters and stuff just go for like these big flashy spark spells when just disarm the stupid teenagers and then kill them?
Because
like only the kids at Hogwarts are using a disarming spell, which seems like pretty key to dueling.
Yeah, you'd think so.
And why aren't the Death Eaters just not throwing Avada Kedavra everywhere?
Yeah, they don't care. Like, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead.
Instead, they're just like throwing sparks around. Like, just kill them. You're evil. That's what you're supposed to do.
Or at least something that's more debilitating.
Yeah,
that's weird. One of my favorite thoughts of inconsistencies is this little bit that cast of Game of Thrones had is the actor for Sam was getting talked at by someone. It's like, why are you still fat? I mean, like, you're running around in really terrible conditions and not enough food. You've stayed the same weight and you should be losing a ton. And the actor's response is like, we have dragons and magic shadow beasts being born out of women and all that crap. Why do you care?
Because it's all still that magical internally stuff. Consistent.
Yeah. Why do you care with all the magic stuff that someone's weight hasn't changed?
How long was the Great Ranging? Wasn't it like months?
Oh, yeah, it was months.
So he should have lost a lot of weight.
Oh, yeah. Especially with like all the cold and the hiking and the lack of food and all of that. It was bad. But the fact that Sam hasn't lost weight is basically breaking the rules of thermodynamics, which dragons don't actually break. I don't think so, at least. And nor did I think that the whole shadow monster thing that Melisandre gave birth to, because there's still like this transferring of energy that happened, and he's just making fat out of nowhere.
Right. Well, the dragons could break some laws of physics. But this also assumes that wherever Westeros is has the same laws of physics that our planet has.
I mean, laws of physics should be universal, but like the aspects of physics, like how heavy are their bones or how dense is the air and
we can
flying.
Assume that the world is capable of supporting dragons in some way.
Yeah.
But there's no explanation for why a person doesn't lose weight.
Yeah.
Now, in the book, is it something that's just not talked about, or
he's just always fat?
Yeah, I don't think in the book they described him losing weight either, but I'm sure that once he got back towards civilization, he'd end up putting anything back on. Dude loves food.
Well, yeah, but he lives at Castle Black. There's not much food there.
Well, until he goes off to the Citadel.
True. But that's been like several years. You should have probably slimmed down a little.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it could be a small thing of a character's size, but if you show a tiny person eating a ton, they're going to gain weight because thermodynamics. And if you show a fat person...
metabolism.
that affects like maybe enough calories of like a snack,
Well,
like a
that's
granola bar.
That's interesting. Like that always something that always bothers me about TV shows. You'll see these people like eating and drinking a ton, and they're all still like super fit and cut. I'm like, no, you drink that much alcohol, you're not gonna be that cut.
Exactly.
And I think
There's
that's
also a thing in the Lisbeth Salander books. Like she's like really small and she eats a ton of crap food, but then she never gains weight because it's high metabolism.
Like the
That shit
Gilmore
doesn't
Girls,
exist.
like that show. You're like, those girls eat terribly, but they're still rail thin and hot. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I find it funny because like George R. R. Martin does take King Robert, big warrior, settles down and plops himself on a throne every day, and he gets fat because he's not doing anything anymore.
And he's eating a ton, and he's
Eating
drinking
a
a
lot, drinking
ton,
a lot.
and yeah, he got fat,
He got
and they
fat
made
'cause
fun
that
of
makes
it.
sense because that's what happens when you
Sam
eat,
needs
drink,
to
and
lose
sex.
weight. Damn
Sam
it!
needs to
Oh my god, it's just yeah.
Tell me how you really
away
feel,
from-
Alex.
Away from thermodynamics, let's
what magic systems bother you? Since we did start on that,
on who bother who?
you guys, do you have any magic systems that annoy you?
Okay.
No, like there's like, well, if you want to like hit on Harry Potter, it's not really a system, right? It's just there. It very much is we need this spell to work at this point, so it's there.
Are the words like a phonetic just aid? Do those specific words make this magic happen?
Like, yeah, they're all fairly Latin types of words. So are Japanese people forced to speak Latin too in order to get the magic going? Like they showed at the Quidditch World Cup and all of those people and their different ethnicities, are they all saying the same Latin words?
Like, are the words themselves key to the spell?
I dislike that
It
personally.
seems, at least in Harry Potter, it seems that way.
Like, why would... I mean, that's not... I guess I don't want J.K. Rowling to have to explain why a magic system exists in the first place, but...
At some point, you got to think through the consequences of these things. But, like, I also dislike that in Aragon because you just needed to know the special magic word for a thing in order to be able to control it. It's like, does everyone need to speak the same language then?
That is kind of weird.
I liked, well, the Kingkiller Chronicles, like, the name of the wind, it's not a word, it's like a magical concept. That made more sense to me.
But if
Like, the Wheel of Time, you're, like, literally spinning threads of energy to do things.
That works.
Yeah.
And if you just want to go steal one, just go pick up a player's handbook for D&D and you're set. Because it's a pretty well balanced.
It's got to be balanced. What about Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings magic?
I only know what I saw in the movies.
That was more like elemental in things magic. Well, except for the wizards, obviously.
Also doesn't seem to get used all that much.
Right. I don't know, there's no real like command words. It's just, it feels more like energy coming from somebody.
I mean, I've read enough things that say Lord of the Rings is supposed to be about Christianity and Catholicism, so like the magic is supposed to be miraculous and godlike. So you can't use it very often.
And you do have, demons and stuff show up, so
Yeah.
good parallel.
And like Gandalf is supposed to be Jesus, I think. I don't know.
Gandalf dies and comes back whiter.
Yeah. Ooh, say that again and go on Tumblr.
Well, he goes from gray to white.
Yeah. There was a great thing I saw online. Is like someone was bitching about Tumblr in the comments. It was just like, well, your first problem is you are on Tumblr.
Yeah. Still, sometimes it's just fun to poke them and laugh.
Tumblr in action.
Oh, I love that subreddit. Yeah. And I dislike when systems aren't thought out as well as they should be. It's a little bit hard to pull in them, bring to mind, but if they say this thing happens and that thing is a thing, but like, wait, how does that affect everything else? And they just don't account for it because they've decided to keep it very narrow.
That's one of the things I liked in the end of Wheel of Time. Once Sanderson got his hands on it, he started thinking of more practical uses of magic. Like a guy who, like, you can open a gateway, right, and walk from one point to the other. So one guy started opening gateways into a volcano as a way of using it as a weapon. Because why not, if you can do that?
Yeah, and honestly, portals are a really big thing that can get used way too much. All right, you want to talk about romance and things about romances that might make you stop reading or just rail at the world?
I've already done it, but the surprise child, I hate it. I just fucking hate it. I can't. Like, because I was waiting for it, going through Dresden Files, you know, he hooks up with Susan and Death Mask, and I'm like, they're going to give him a fucking child, aren't they? Like,
hey,
7 books later.
Exactly. That was the reasoning, and you didn't see any word of birth control or condoms or anything, so of course that's going to happen.
Well, but it's just like, this is going to happen. He's going to have a child with Susan. I'm like, great, I'm going to have to quit reading this now. But he did it in a way that was good enough, like, that wasn't terrible enough, that it didn't overly... Like, it obviously changed Dresden, but not in a way that was unbelievable or inconsistent with his character. It was like, but
Harry was lacking a truly deep connection to things, like threat to his person.
And that could be true, but like, you know, when they did in like Gilmore Girls, it was like they just did it.
Nobody liked that one.
They just did it to cause strife. I just hate it when people do, especially because it's almost always a child. And there's like, hey, guess what? You have this great relationship now. We're going to ruin it with a mystery child. Whoa. And I just, God, it just pisses me off so bad. Yeah.
I think the thing that
same with Scrubs. It was just, when they did in Scrubs, I was so pissed off at it.
Scrubs lost a lot of its allure later. Hey, what about Jim and Pam?
But that makes more sense though, because like, you know, they're married, and the kids really they were used more for like small plot points.
Married, that was quite important.
Well, yes, but they didn't really change the characters a lot, you know.
Michael monologue at the wedding was just so great.
Yeah, and they weren't relationship breaking. They weren't there to like break a relationship. They were there because that's what happens.
Surprise babies are possibly good.
I was a surprise baby. I think I'm good.
Well, I mean, we're talking about stories, and it's more like using children as weapons. That's my issue.
You dislike when a child is used to cause surprise conflict, like a surprise child that just arrives in order to make an already good relationship terrible.
These people are getting along too well.
Right.
Yeah, Maggie works because he wasn't with Susan. And as
that
he
could
said,
be true.
Because Susan didn't tell him, they can never be a thing again, even though they're still in love with each other, which I love the heartbreak.
Vampire.
Well, he can make the vampire anti-venom. It's like, why don't you do that? Tie him up. It still works. Come on. Molly had the right idea. Tie her up.
I still don't like Harry Potter romances.
I just hate that everyone ended up with their high school sweetheart. Not one of them had a terrible divorce.
I'm not talking about like the epilogue or whatever, but like in the books, I thought they were good because they were so just whiny and narcissistic and like flailing around like a limp fish, like, what's going on? Which is what teenagers do. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought book 4 was rather well. Like, they have a ball to go to, and now you have to like find a date. And oh god, that's terrible when you're a teenager.
Like, what's her name? The Chinese girl.
Cho Chang.
Cho. She kind of just gets dropped. Like, they liked each other. Oh well. Which, that can be realistic.
Well, he liked her. She kind of liked him, but she was with the other guy, and then the guy died, and then she feels terrible for liking Harry because he survived. I thought that was well done. And then she just stopped being a thing when she graduated.
Yeah, I mean, that's my issue. Like,
well, how often do you talk to people who graduate ahead of you?
True. Was she ahead of him?
Yeah, she was ahead of him by like a year or two.
I mean, the honest answer to that question is depends on how hot she was. But
by that point, I think he started having feelings for his best friend's little sister, which
that's
weird.
That's
right.
Just like, even if you both like each other, is probably just a no. Maybe don't do that.
Well, it also depends. Like, you don't know where she went, right?
Yeah, I thought the romances in Harry Potter were believable for them being teenagers.
It doesn't mean they don't annoy me.
Yeah,
They're just believable.
What annoyed me is like after the teenage part when
Happily
everyone
ever
is
after.
still the same, apparently. Ugh.
So I guess I find it funny and semi-hypocritical that I'm still pissed Neville and Luna didn't end up together.
Even though that would just be...
Yes, maybe they wouldn't end up. It just happens.
Yeah. You're unhappy at the realism of their... what do you guys think
when
of...
everything else is so not realistic at the end, it just feels like, well, if you went that deep into this, why didn't you just go all the way?
Because she just really hates Neville. That's just all there is to it. Poor Neville. Like, I feel bad for Neville.
I still think he's got the most badass moment in the entire series.
Yeah.
That the movie robbed of its badassness.
What do you think of love triangles, and how much do you hate them?
It really depends on why. Like, if it's just like, hey, we're going to kick... The main character is going to be really stupid for a night and hook up with somebody he shouldn't have, and it's going to cause problems because plot. Just like, why?
Wheel of Time has, like, first of all, Van's got 3 girlfriends. And wives set up eventually. And it's just like, okay, they all are okay with this. That's just weird. But then there's Perrin and Fael, whatever her name is. And Berylene keeps making moves on Perrin, and Perrin keeps saying no, and Fael keeps getting mad. It's like, the fuck do you want the guy to do? Punch the bitch? Like, he's denying her every which way, and she's still getting mad.
Yeah.
And it's just like needless drama.
One thing that Jordan didn't do well was women.
Tug's braid.
Swish skirts. Yeah, and I just remember, since I stopped reading it, my mom was telling me everything of the story, because I do that to Colin as well. Like, you have to tell me things that I want to know, but I don't want to read it.
Wheel of Time is a very satisfying series that actually concludes pretty well.
Isn't it like a bajillion books long,
but the in-between, I'm not sure I want to do that part, because it seems...
Because we spend way too many pages listening to Perrin and Fael argue about a woman who's trying to hit on him.
Well, it's just the women seem to be kind of really temperamental. Like, was it Elaine or Egwene or something? They learned of something that Rand was doing, and they, without thinking about it, not really, they got angry and says, no, I can't let that happen. So then she's like going against Rand, even though it's not a good thing, and she like didn't do enough thinking about it, and it just came off as like really bitchy and temperamental and stupid. And it's like, stop writing your women that way.
Well, it's funny because you've got the male magic users go crazy. So you've got a world dominated magically by powerful women. And it's like every woman needs to be assertive to a fault. It's like he just decided he was going to have strong women, but every woman is boneheaded.
Yeah.
I mean, Moraine's the only woman who thinks before she acts. And even then, she's still...
Some amount of this maybe is like, how old are they? They're still teenagers. Maybe they're just going to be dumb. At the same time, why are teenagers the ones saving the world? Because
Rand Thor is the reincarnation of the savior of the world.
That's a weird trope. Like, why is it like, oh god, anime's terrible about this. Like, why is everyone important 15?
Because that's the target audience.
Though Rand and Co are like 17 or 18, and Nynaeve is like 21 or 25 or something like that. Which is the only reason her falling in love with Lan's not creepy.
Because Lan is like actually 30.
Is he that young?
Oh, it's like he's significantly older. Like he was like a professional dude.
Yeah, but she's also a little older than the group, which, when they're all from the same place, kind of gets lost in translation. But yeah, you can't write women.
So the thing that seems to happen in YA is like, oh, there's a girl, and then there's two different guys, and there's like so different on the surface, and they're all dumb. And it's like, will she, won't she? Which one is he going to go for?
I'm just going to put this out there. I'm Team Jacob. Thank you. I've never read I've read like a sentence because I picked it up in the store and looked at it and threw it back down. But, oh yeah. And, oh my God. I mean, that whole love story gets creepy very quickly. She has a magically aged daughter who her former boyfriend falls in love with.
Yeah.
What?
It's just...
What? Why? I did like, though, with Fitz and Molly. Like, okay, so they grew up together, hint of a romance, and Molly's like, yeah, you're just not I'm not gonna...
Oh. And see, I thought that was kind of terrible. I mean, like, heartbreaking type terrible. Like, so they have a thing, they have a relationship in book 2, and it seems to be going well. And then in book 3, she chooses someone else. Who's like his best friend / surrogate father /
Yeah, that's what I don't get. Like, it's a little old for her, but...
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're going to talk about ages, a younger woman with an older man does happen significantly more often than an older woman and a younger man.
Thank God for the new president of France.
Yeah, that is weird because, like, she has a child older than her husband.
I mean, it's sweet that it's love. I think I've asked this before to people I know, but, like, at what point did that teacher-student relationship change? And how?
Yeah.
But still, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about weird relationships, probably the oddest one I saw in real life was a woman who married the doctor who delivered her.
Ooh. He's like 30 years older than her then.
Yeah, it was something like
at least. Yeah. Oh my God. I can't even... I'm sorry, I'm not going to even...
You know, this is going to get me onto Dresden again, because people keep saying that Dresden needs to hand out or get up with Molly. It's like, because they're going to live forever. It's like, no. Yeah, he feels weird about that she was a kid when he met her, and that's what he still thinks of her as. And
she's his best friend's daughter.
Yeah.
Please don't.
He seems to respect that sort of boundary other than like Harry Potter going after his best friend's sister.
I would so much rather just stick with the cliche, get with Murphy, please.
Murphy's not a cliche.
No, but I mean his best friend, and just fall for her, clearly. Why not? Please don't look up with your
Another
daughter.
thing in romances that bothers me is when they bring in another romantic partner just because it's not time for the main characters to get together yet. That's more of like a TV trope, but still, you see it all the time. We're like, okay, we know these characters are going to get together, but we're going to have this side love for one or both of them.
Karen.
Or just the stupid, we got together and there's a misunderstanding, so we break up. Like, I always hated that. I always hate that trope, too.
I kind of wanted to play with some things with romance. Like, so once in a while, I kind of want to do it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just do an urban fantasy paranormal romance at some point, now that I have an urban fantasy world to play with.
Your main character should totally, like, get with an orc or something, just for funsies.
I was thinking more like, okay, these characters are trying to think of things rationally, and then, like, the dude's terrible, crazy ex-girlfriend comes out. It's like, and the girl's like, I can't do this. I can't deal with this crazy. And she leaves, and the crazy ex-girlfriend is just, like, going to be, like, the main antagonist for the story or something. And I just, like, wanted to play with that and see what I could do. But I haven't done enough of the work yet to see what would actually happen.
One of my favorite TV romances has to be Elaine and Putty. They break up for the most absurd reasons, like the dumbest shit you can think of, and then get Seinfeld. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh.
and then get back together like for the most absurd. They break up and get back together constantly over the dumbest things, and that's the entire point.
It's kind of like oh man, and Aziz's character in Parks and Rec when they date. Why am I blanking on this?
Oh my god, what's his something with a T?
It was like Tom something.
Tom.
Yeah.
Haverford.
Yeah. They're like, congratulations, new record. We've been together for 36 hours without breaking up. High five. Just...
I stopped watching Parks and Rec when Anne got really dumb. Like, so she had a boyfriend, and then she has another boyfriend, and then like the gimmick seemed to be anytime a guy pays attention to her, she wants to follow him and do stuff. It's like I got really tired of that.
They actually deal with that later in the show. Like it is a plot point about how Anne does that in the show later on.
The show's worth watching solely for Leslie and everything she does.
And Ron's amazing.
And Ron. And April. The show's worth watching.
Indeed.
It does manage to poke fun at things it did wrong before.
Yes,
that can be good.
It's a very self-aware show, and that's what I think. That's one reason why it works so well. Is it's just like, hey, remember that mistake we made? Oh, we're gonna poke fun at it now.
Remember when we tried to be The Office? Just kidding, we're not. Is there any gratuitous violence that you don't like?
Well, not for me personally, but like I know a lot of people argue and get really offended by some amount of violence, especially if it's rape. Like,
it's just so uncomfortable. Especially like a really graphic scene like that. You're just like, oh man, that's tough.
Well, along with like the tropes of like everyone's got to be an orphan. It's like every woman had to have been brutally raped in the past.
Malazan falls victim to that towards the end of the series. Like the culture the woman was in is very well set. And when her husband gets murdered, they hobble her, and then anyone can just walk over and bend her over. And he gets pretty graphic sometimes. And it's like, okay, so that is the culture she's been living in. We kind of already established that. But then you have to he goes there, and it is a little excessive.
It seems like, especially when people are trying to do the grim, dark thing, that like a lot of women are just going to get violently raped, and that's because it's a grim, dark setting, and maybe that's okay, or it's like it's part of the setting and the story and the genre. But
just got to be careful with that,
right?
It's like some of it's done when it's overused, and some of it is people will stop reading if you get graphic. And some people will stop reading just because you had a nice sex scene in there instead of like bashing someone's head in with an axe. Like George R. R. Martin has a really good quote with this. Like he can describe battle with as much graphic detail as he ever wants, and people love it. But as soon as he describes a nipple, people stop reading and they send him hate mail. It's like, how dare you? This was like, it was so gross that something that's so much nicer and more enjoyable.
Describe an axe entering a human skull in explicit detail. No one will blink twice. I provide a similar description, just as detailed, of a penis entering a vagina, and I get letters and swearing people.
Yeah.
I think it's the first episode of season 8 in South Park, but it's Good Times with Weapons, and that's the entire point of the episode, is dealing with sex versus violence and how everyone's okay with violence and not sex.
Yeah.
I think American TV is prudish, but...
Or American people in general.
American people in general.
Yeah. But, I mean, these prudes all... because he used the word fuck too many times.
We do come by it, honestly.
I mean, I don't use cuss words as often as I thought I did in my writing. So when I was going through my sci-fi military things, like, no, these are military people. I need to add in the cuss words. And so I'm going to make sure to put one, like, on the front page or two. It's like, this is a fuck, okay? And you got to get used to this.
Yeah, I definitely, because I'm in Andromeda's Love and Reservations at 8, it's much more of like an R-rated kind of thing. So I'm like, but I actually have to like force myself to put in curse words. It's kind of weird.
I don't
You
use
grew up
curse
really
words
religious.
ever.
Well, that too, but like
I fucking swear all the time. I just don't.
I
let
think
it.
part of it is because so much of my, I spend so much time in like a very corporate culture because I work for a big company, and so you really can't swear, or you shouldn't swear all that much, in the workplace. So, like I'm used to censoring myself.
It was so nice to I stopped censoring myself once I got out of high school and I get to college and the teachers are swearing as much as I was. Like, oh, that was great.
And I still think with Malazan and how he has the world-specific swearing, like blood and guts and whatever, and wheel time, and he's got Hood's ball. I like particularly swearing on the gods' nether regions because it makes so little sense. People swear on Hood's the god of death, so soldiers swear a lot on Hood's balls.
That's
but
nice.
then
And
he'll just drop the fuck every once in a while, and it's just like, fuck yeah.
yeah.
Like, it's just so, he doesn't use normal swears often, but when he drops the fuck, it's just satisfying.
Because it's familiar and you know it. But it's like, I know people get prudish about swear words, but don't do what Sanderson does and make up new swear words that don't make sense, like colors or storms.
Color, like storms, I can see because a storm is not a good thing. Colors,
except it is. The storms are good things.
Well, high storms are very bad, but they're just very useful, kind of.
It's like they start out as bad things and then they become good things. Maybe don't use it as your swear word because it's like powering your main character. And
yes, colors. But you still don't want to be in a storm.
Colors.
Warbreaker is a very, very good, very entertaining book, but
Warbreaker was great, but it's just not a swear word. And I gotta blame it on him being Mormon because Mormons are kind of prudish.
Also, to bring up what's it called, that Silk and Steel book again, just to go through a page, like a paragraph by paragraph description of various body parts, and then you just get to the pubes.
It was so jarring. Like he's
pubes.
So like esoteric words, and then you're really using the word pubes.
Like word choice can be very important to not breaking immersion.
Yeah, and
let's keep on topic of ranting about things that don't work.
Well, let's just try to go back to the violence. Like Joe Abercrombie is like the one that is known for grimdark. I think his Twitter handle is Lord Grimdark.
I still don't think I've only read, what's the first book? Blade itself?
The first Blade. Yeah, no, the Blade itself. Yeah.
I still don't think it was as grimdark as people made it out to be.
No, I mean there was Glokta.
Glokta's fantastic. Like his introduction is, I'm gonna hate this guy, and then like 5 pages later, I love this guy.
He was a really fun character. And just the fact that he was awesome and now he's broken and disabled and ugly and he's so bitter about it. And
the one thing with that is like, so he gave him the handicap of being very crippled, and it kind of ties the characters in the writing to making sure he's crippled, and it just kind of gets like, it's such an overwhelming handicap for the character that it's just overbearingly present in every scene.
Yeah, I mean, you never ever forget that he is crippled. Like he has to walk up some stairs, or worse, down some stairs, and it's terrible for him. And since he's a torturer, like he's doing to other people what was done to him. And it's really nice and dark, but like
I just think it slows the story down a little too much sometimes.
I thought the book was very slow going, I think, until I started reading it again, and all of a sudden it made me laugh. It's like, okay, I'll finish it.
I still don't really know what. I've only read the Blade itself. I do need to get back to that series because I enjoyed it and reread that book. I just still don't really know where they're going.
Well, apparently, at the end of the first book, everyone's going to some other country.
That big bad country.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so some people in the north are going south, and the people who are in the south are going to another country. Like the entire group of people, as partly as like one like traveling troop, and then Glokta's getting sent independently, but everyone's going to happen there. But he's like the guy. Joe Abercrombie is like the grimdark guy, and the violence. And I don't remember there being too much violence, but there's just like
George R. R. Martin's a lot more gratuitous.
Yeah, I think that there's more people that die and axes going into heads.
Erickson likes describing the bile and guts that spill out when someone is eviscerated. He does that a couple times gratuitously.
But like, is it just us that like we don't seem to have a problem with violence? Because I know people will stop reading when it gets too much.
Yeah, I'm not bothered. I mean, I'm a horrible analyzer of these things because I've read like 3 books that I've actually actively disliked while reading. Like, I will pretty much finish anything and really just kind of enjoy it. I just like reading.
We also grew up on television, so we've all seen like 12,000 murders or whatever that statistic is.
Oh, the show Bones.
Oh God, that got dumb.
Bones is one of the few shows I've watched where the violence just feels deliberately gratuitous and annoying. Like, sometimes they just show absolutely gross things, and it's just like, okay, you're trying to.
Some of the Marvel Netflix shows are that way, where you're just like, oh, like it's cringy to be cringy.
Though, as much as I used to religiously watch NCIS, the need to always have Ducky with a opened up corpse on a table kind of got old.
Yeah, you stop caring after a while, which is weird. Like the Venture Bros, completely different type of topic, but they have this character, Dr. Girlfriend, and then she becomes Dr. Wife, or Dr. Fiance for a little bit right there. And she's probably based off of Jackie Kennedy, because that's kind of what she wears a lot. It's like the pink Chanel, and she's beautiful. She's voiced by a man with like the really rough, down, low, gravelly voice. At one point, they asked us, like, do you just eat cigarettes or something? Why do you have that voice? But after a while, you stop noticing the voice. Like, this is just a woman character. You don't care. And it's amazing.
I was going to say, on the topic of violence and death in particular, you really stop caring about characters in Game of Thrones after a little while because
they're going to die.
They're just going to die, and it's just like that's the one weird thing with Erickson, is that he actually, with such a massive array of characters that can come and go because, soldiers die, you get very attached to characters very quickly. But with Martin, it's just like, okay, this character's in, whatever, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I found weird with Nimble Dick in Feast for Crows. On my reread, I really liked Nimble Dick. And I was very sad when he died. And I'm like, this is such an unusual reaction for me with a Martin book. He made me care about this. It wasn't so much that I cared about Nimble Dick. It's just going in knowing the end already. I felt bad because Brienne treats him he's Brienne, the character that leads Brienne in search of Sansa or whoever. Yeah. And she treats him with such mistrust and suspicion when you know already, because you've read it, that he's being completely honest, that it just... Like, the first time I was suspicious of Nimble Dick. What's he doing? And then he just gets killed because he was being honest and trying to help her. It's one of the few times when he's actually created a character that you feel bad for and get attached to very quickly.
Interesting. Considering it's like Martin kind of shot himself in the foot with all the surprise deaths. Do we have any other things we need to rant about in this episode, because we've gone over time?
I'm sure. I think I'm good, and we always end up ranting in our episodes anyway, so whatever we miss, we'll hit at some other point.
Yeah, we'll do it all. It's just I was busy writing, so I didn't get time to put effort into this podcast. I'm so sorry.
Well, hey, we went overtime. We're overachieving right now.
That's right.
Yay!
All right, so you can find me at Jacob Ingalls on Twitter, at Prairie Penguin on Instagram. We have new Patreon levels that Alex can talk about if she wants to.
Yeah.
Broken Jars at XYZ, et cetera, et cetera.
we have like, you can join us on Discord, and then you can join us on Discord even more because we have like podcast channels that you can get into if you pay more. We got like stickers that are supposed to be coming out soon if you pay $3.
Ooh.
Yeah, and if you pay $20 a month, you get to join us for like the post-show, pre-show chat and laugh at us.
Which there are times where the post and pre-show are as long as the episodes themselves.
Yeah, especially when we get controversial, which is going to probably happen soon, I think. And then we've got more coming, but we don't have enough of the plans in place in order to do it. So we've got it. Like, we're waiting for the stickers to show up first.
Right.
But stickers are cool.
And if anyone is going to be at San Diego Comic-Con and wants to meet up with me, just email us at brokenjarsbroadcasting@gmail.com, and yeah, we'll go have a beer or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, also he'll have stickers there.
I will have stickers there, so if you find me and talk about the network, I'll give you stuff.
Yeah. And check out the Justin Files podcast, because if you're listening to this, you probably like
There's
that
a lot
one
of
too.
Justin.
Yes. I am a part of Great Scott, where we are talking about The Office from NBC, and we are currently in season 5.
And if you want to hear more about my urban fantasy thing, I've been tweeting a lot about it. So you can follow me at Alex, spelled with an I, _Kelsey.
And if you bring up the fact that it's Dresden Files, she will
It's not Dresden.
She will attempt to stab you.
And don't
not a ripoff.
mention the Doom of Damocles.
Yes, I thought she was like.
That was terrible.
So.
Oh, I didn't know I got tweeted at.
Yes, I tweeted it. I publicly shamed you for that.
And I think I ended up following you after that. But anyway, this is more post-show stuff. So y'all have a good whatever. Happy Mother's Day if you're a mom.
I have a Twitter.
So y'all have a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
I wanted to end it on, I have a Twitter.
I kind of forgot that I have Twitter.